Welcome to the Pulse of Spokane. Join us for the latest in news, views, and conversation with community leaders. The Pulse of Spokane is brought to you in part by Homes for You, Well Dressed Walrus, and Spokane Firefighters Local 29. Now, put your finger on the Pulse of Spokane.
Hi everybody, and thanks for joining us. We are here at the Hutton Settlement in Spokane Valley, celebrating their centennial year, 100 years, here on their gorgeous campus, tucked away in Spokane Valley, near Arborcrest, actually, on this gorgeous day in July. Thanks for joining us. We have a great show for the Pulse of Spokane today. First, it's a group from Spokane Valley Summer Theatre. They're just about to present their Sound of Music production for the month of July, and we have a couple actors here with us today. And then we hear from Ty Brown. He wrote a book about the Wandermere area. You're going to want to hear about it when we come back on the Pulse of Spokane.
The economy is getting stronger. Banks are lending again, and interest rates are at historic lows. Now is a great time to buy your dream home. The caring and knowledgeable professionals at Homes for You have been helping people just like you for over 20 years. They take the time to listen to what you want and will help you find just the right home in Washington or Idaho. Real estate is what we do at Homes for You, 928-5782, or visit online at homes4uspokane.com.
Welcome to a new kind of talk show, Spokane Talks, where you find news, views, and conversations that include respect for opinions, facts, and diversity.
Spokane Talks, Saturdays at 8 a.m. on Fox 28.
O'Brien Logistics would like to invite you to try our local and regional transportation services. With Sprinter vans, lift gates, hot shot flatbeds, and expedited services, our people are ready to step in and help with your transportation needs. Our services are 24/7, 365, and we are trained and prepared to handle air cargo and Canadian shipments. Give us a call at 208-305-2311 or visit our website at o'brienlogistics.net. That's OBRIEN logistics.net.
And welcome back to The Pulse, and we have Maddie Burgess and Kimball DeMars joining us from Spokane Valley Summer Theatre, and they're in the upcoming production of The Sound of Music, which opens on
Friday.
Is that scary?
Yes.
I
think we're going to be ready. We have a show.
You're absolutely ready. And I should note that I'm actually stage managing this show, so I've kind of gotten to see it all come together, and it really is, theater magic is real. It's amazing to see, especially in summer theater, you only have, a few weeks to put a show together?
Yeah.
And it's incredible to see how far we've come and this is a massive show, The Sound of Music. It's a 2.5-hour show that we're putting together this quickly, and yet it's beautiful and brilliant, and the community, I think, is going to love it. So what's it been like for you guys? Maddie, you play Liesel in the show, the oldest Von Trapp child.
Yes.
And Kimball, you play Rolf, a Nazi in the show.
Turn Nazi.
Turn Nazi.
I can put
half
that part
and half.
aside.
And so what's kind of been that dynamic for you, almost going back in time to the 1930s, and kind of flipping things on its head? Because here we are in 2019. Has it been hard to really tap into that lifestyle and that time period? What about you, Kimball?
Well, it is, I feel like it's a lot more personal when you're there, because sometimes we just talk about World War II and some of the terrible things that happened there, especially during the Nazi reign, and we just kind of brush it aside and we talk about it, but we don't really, really grasp it. So I think the Sound of Music part of it is kind of a lesson to be learned about the kind of terror and the family involved in the Nazi regime.
Absolutely. And I know, Liesel, because you are falling in love with Rolf in the show, that's another element, because you love him, but yet he's on the other side. So how's tapping into that as an actor been for you?
It makes it more real, because it's like Kimball was saying, it's easy to talk about the events that happened during World War II and you understand that they're horrifying, but when you actually think about it and think about that actually happened to families and to girls like Liesel, and having to actually come to terms like that, that's not only heartbreaking, it's also like a more evil heartbreaking for
Right.
her.
Right, and the thing about The Sound of Music is you see so many different sides of that story, whether it's on, the Nazi side or the family side of things, and even with the sisters, the Reverend Mother, the nuns, you kind of get a feel for so many different areas and elements of this story, which I think is really special. But on top of that, of course, why people love this show so much is the music. And I'm kind of curious, did you guys know the lyrics to 16 going on 17 before rehearsals even started?
Yeah.
She did.
I did.
Of course I knew it, but like I never dreamed this is like the first musical I grew up with, watching the movie. But
Right.
like I never dreamed, hey, one day I want to be that character. But like here we are.
And the movie, I think the movie is brilliant. Of course, Julie Andrews.
Right.
Have you seen the movie,
Oh,
both of you?
Well, Sound of Music was the first movie musical I ever
It
watched.
was the first one I
And
watched.
I remember I would get it from the library, and then I just like rewatch all like the musical scenes like over and over and over in like my living room. So this is
That's
also
so
like an
funny.
extra special show.
And I remember as a kid, and those of you at home know this, The Sound of Music is so long that I remember as a kid not being able to watch the entire thing in
Yeah.
one sitting. So
Yeah.
I would have to like pause it, and then maybe like the next day or the next weekend I'd watch the rest of
Yeah.
it, because it is it's a long production, a long show. The show is a lot of fun, and I already know, even though we haven't opened, that the community's gonna love it. And you open on Friday, and you can get tickets at www.svsummertheater.com. But there's also another upcoming show at Spokane Valley Summer Theatre, and what is that, Liesl?
Mamma Mia.
And are you guys in Mamma Mia?
I'm not
No.
actually.
I'm
no,
not.
just Sound of Music.
But you should come see it anyway.
But it is funny because a lot of, we have quite a few cast members in The Sound of Music that are also in Mamma Mia. So that's been kind of fun for them to work on both shows at once. I know Mamma Mia is already getting started and well underway. So that's exciting too. And Mamma Mia is such a fun show. There's so much energy, and it's a little not quite as deep as The Sound of Music. So I think that'll be fun and refreshing for people that are in both shows. But I encourage you to come see The Sound of Music as it opens on Friday. And it's going to run for 3 weekends?
Yes. July
Thursday.
12th through the 28th, Thursdays through Sundays.
And talk about a little bit, because both of you have been involved with like high school theater and community theater. What's the difference been like for you now stepping into a professional theater setting that SVST is?
You go first.
Okay. Well, it's more quick, like you alluded to, because I think I counted, and I think we have like 4 weeks of rehearsal, and then 1 week of tech, which we're in, and then it's 3 weekends of shows. So it's all very fast, and you're there pretty much like the whole afternoon and the whole evening. But it's also I see a lot more dedication from the actors. Like when you're there to work. Whereas like with high school, you get more of the like learning element and stuff like that. But when you're at rehearsal, you're there to work and you just kind of get it done, which I appreciate the professionalism of
Absolutely. What about you, Kimball?
Like she said, it's just a different environment. Like, you're with adults now
Yeah.
instead of high schoolers.
Right.
And when you come to rehearsal, you come to work. Like, you don't have time to sit by and wait. Like, shows I'm in, it takes 3 months to put them together. This one's just a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So you gotta be dedicated.
You do, and even like the memorization deadline, it's like right away.
Yeah,
and
it's like the week after you start rehearsal.
one of my teachers in high school had this poster that said deadlines are closer than they appear, and especially with summer theater, that could not be more true.
Yeah.
So anyways, the show is beautiful. You two in particular are amazing and such a highlight of the show itself.
Thank you.
Your choreography, your emotions, your voices. I mean, it's amazing. And I love watching you, and I know you all will too. So go to svsummertheater.com and get your tickets. And you can also call 509-368-7897 for the box office. And that opens Friday, July 12th through the 28th. So you have 3 weeks to check it out. I know you want to go to the lake a little bit too. So you have 3 weekends and opportunities to see it. Thanks for coming on, you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank
thanks
And when
for
we come
having
back,
us.
we're going to be with Ty Brown, and he's written a book about the Wandermere area. It's really interesting, and I'm going to be learning about it for the first time, along with you all. So we'll be right back with that after the break. Stay with us.
This is River Ridge Frame Shop, called Frame It Today, where we can take your art, customize it, and get it ready to hang on the wall. Here at River Ridge Hardware, 2803 West Garland.
Welcome to Tom Sawyer Country Coffee.
Tom Sawyer Country Coffee only roasts the finest organic coffee for our signature blends. Enjoy a cup at our coffee shop and local businesses and organizations across the region.
I'm Tom Sawyer, and we choose the Pacific Northwest. Welcome to a new kind of talk show, Spokane Talks, where you find news, views, and conversations that include respect for opinions, facts, and diversity.
Spokane Talks, Saturdays at 8 a.m. on Fox 28.
So we're back on the pulse at the gorgeous Hutton Settlement here in Spokane Valley. And actually behind us is their garden area, and it is in full bloom as they're growing things this summer. It's a beautiful day, and I'm joined with Ty Brown. And Ty, it's funny because you actually went to school with the current executive director of the Hutton Settlement, Chud Wendell. And so you have some ties to what he's doing here as well. But you've written a book called Wandermere. It's a legacy on the Little Spokane River. Right. And I have to say, when you told me you'd written this book, I didn't think it was going to be quite this big. But just glancing through it, there's so much information and so much background and so many photos. What was the inspiration for you behind writing this book?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because most people say the same thing. They're just like, "Oh, this is actually a real book."
Right.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it started. I just was kind of getting some information about my family's business, and as the research was going, I just found more and more connections and ties to Spokane in general. And just the whole history of the whole operation they had there, the year-round recreation opportunities that they gave people. And so as I was researching and finding out more, it did turn into more and more and more and more. And I figured, I might as well just write a book about this. And then it got to the point where I had to kind of pull the plug on the book a little bit because it just would have been a huge monster of a book. So.
Absolutely, and you have family ties behind it too, because your great grandparents founded a lot of the activities in the Wandermere area. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the Little Spokane River, where the golf course is found, is kind of been a draw for people from Spokane, from back in the late 1800s, because it was, it's only 9 miles from downtown, but it was so far out there, and it was a lot of it was like a wilderness escape for a lot of these people in Spokane.
Right. Hard to believe now that Spokane's so built up.
Yeah, exactly. That's what the cool thing about it is, and even the golf course right now is just surrounded by houses and businesses, and you would never know. But the cool thing about the Little Spokane River, though, was it did provide that escape. And then in 1930, my great-grandparents purchased this property that was already developed somewhat as a recreation opportunity. A guy named Francis H. Cook, he built the lake out there. It's an artificial lake. And all the activities out there are centered around that lake.
And, that's the lake that's next to the golf course.
Yeah, the golf course kind of, goes around the lake. And the one side of it's now housing. But all the activities out there pretty much center around that lake.
Ice skating.
Yeah, ice skating, swimming. Eventually, a lot of people are surprised at the fact that they had ski jumping out there, and skiing and tobogganing and picnicking and
you mentioned
riding, diving. Yeah, they put a diving tower in, and it was as my mom would say about her father, my grandfather, any way to make a buck.
Right.
And the golf course business is, it's a short season in Spokane, and so in order to survive, you have to be creative. And they were creative in establishing a bathing area and a picnic area, and then in the winter they could ice skate. And they were actually ice skating out there in the late 1800s before they even purchased this in 1930. Wow. So it already was a recreation destination for ice skating.
Sure. And let's go further back, because before it was kind of a recreation area and before your family ties with the Wandermere area, tell us about the history there and the railroad and not really anything being in the Wandermere area.
Yeah, there was a a mill called Dart's Mill, which is right next door on the river, and that's known as Dartford now. And that had been established, in the late 1800s. And that was about the only thing on that stretch of the river aside from farms. And as a matter of fact, the golf course itself was first established as a farm. This Francis H. Cook that built the lake, he purchased the property from the railroad. And the railroad was given odd sections of land so they could fund building these railroads. So they would take the land and they would either develop it or they would sell it, and then with that money they'd develop the railroads. So anyway, Francis H. Cook bought this land from the railroad, and he actually was a Spokane pioneer that had a lot of property in Spokane, basically the whole Manitou area. He had the first newspaper in Spokane.
Wow.
He was a very well-known pioneer in Spokane. And so there's a thing, the Panic of 1893 happened, like the Great Recession or like a Great Depression.
Sure.
Well, he lost everything except the property that was out on the Little Spokane River. So he packed up his family, they moved out there, and then they started farming the area. Then he built the lake and used the lake for money-making purposes. He would have ice skating for recreation, but he would use the lake for a fish hatchery that he had developed out there. And he also, in the winter when it would froze over, he would cut sections of ice out, and then they would sell that ice to the people in Spokane. So another way to make a buck on the property, like my parents used it
And
for.
Something that I think is so interesting is Spokane is, I like to think, very young and vibrant and expanding so much, especially in the last few years. So I think a lot of the people that are here today and moving here in the last, let's say, 10 years don't know much about the history here.
Yeah, that's another, I guess, reason to write the book. A lot of the older generations that partook in the activities at Wandermere, they are, getting long in years, and they maybe not with us for much longer. And a lot of the younger generations, they don't know anything about the history. They just know it as the Wandermere area. And that's the cool thing about writing this book, is talking to people that have participated in those events back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, or know nothing about it and are totally surprised that they had swimming and skating and skiing out there at Wandermere besides just the golf course.
And I think you have to have a certain curiosity about history. I feel like too often, especially with my peers and my generation, we don't necessarily ask about history, our family's history, but yet in my parents' and grandparents' generation, they're so curious as to what happened before them, and they have such rich information
it seems
as
like
to their
that,
ancestors. And I feel like I don't know as much about my family's history and ties, and I think that's the same for my peers. And I mean, you're a high school history teacher. Do you think that's
that's one thing I try to
generational thing?
instill in my students. You have to make it exciting, or you have to have that family connection or that tie. If it's just something that nobody really knows about, there's not going to be that interest, that vested interest. And so you have to find the interest, make it exciting, or have some sort of a connection to it. I think, as I wrote this, I just think that everybody should write a book. I know it sounds funny or weird or whatever, but you learn so much. You learn so much, and you also learn that maybe for your future generations, you record things a little bit better, or if you cut newspaper articles out, you put the dates on there, or you write names of people on the back of pictures, or I learned those things as I did this. And I mean, writing the book was cool about learning the history of my family's business, but it was also cool just the people I met and the connections I made and the things that I discovered and the detective work of trying to figure all these things out. It was incredible. I would definitely recommend it. It was awesome.
And there are hundreds of pages of rich information going, from dating way back to even the modern era, 2017 and forward. And you mentioned that this took about 2 years to complete.
Yeah, from thought to finish, 2 years, I tell people.
The compilation is incredible. The photos themselves kind of give a rich history just alone to the area, and it's really neat. I encourage you to take a look at this. Ty, where can people get this book?
Oh, it's available at Auntie's Bookstore.
Okay, downtown.
Yeah, and then also on the north side at Mel's Gifts and Ace Hardware, and then of course at the golf course.
At the Wandermere Golf Course.
Yeah.
I love it. Ty, thanks for sharing this with us.
Sure.
And I look forward to looking more into the book.
All right, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us on this edition of The Pulse of Spokane on this very special day at the Hutton Settlement. Have a great day, everybody.
The Pulse of Spokane is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksMedia.com, which is solely responsible for its content. The Pulse of Spokane is brought to you in part by Homes for You, Well Dressed Walrus, and Spokane Firefighters Local 29. Ask the host a question, recommend a guest, or hear this program again on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com.